Good morning. Before I start to talk about the servicemen of the parish, I would just like to say a few thank yous. The first thank you I would like to say is to Mick Hay, who is not only a good friend of mine, but is also a distant relation. The man who I call Cuz has done much of the research into these servicemen, and along with another relation who would like to remain nameless, the hours and hours of dedication that these people have put in has been quite incredible. I would also like to thank Andy Wade and Ian Wharton of the Men of Worth project. Their generosity in sharing all the information they have on the servicemen of the parish is just truly fantastic, and we owe them both an awful lot for the work that they have done. Thank you all. The first serviceman I would like to talk about is Tom Raymond Walmsley of Leeds and Crossroads, and he was born on the 13th of January 1897, and in 1901 he was living here at 3 Nile Street in Crossroads, but by 1911 he had moved up the road to 31 Nelson Street, Crossroads. Tom actually attended technical classes at the Village Institute, which was just at the end of the road, and he actually managed to win a prize of 12 shillings and sixpence for a special machine drawing that he did. So he must have been quite good at the technical classes. Tom joined up for the Navy in August 1916, and he trained on the ship HMS President II, which was a training vessel. But he was discharged on the 5th of October 1916, and he was declared unfit for service. He went back home and tried to go back to work, but he was working the mills, and it became clear that he was never going to truly recover. We now know that he had contracted TB whilst in the Navy, and his lungs were probably damaged, and working back in the mills with the wool dust would probably not have helped him at all. Tom died just 19 months after being discharged and was just 21 years of age. He is buried at Howard Cemetery. Real tragedy of this story was Tom's poor mum, Fanny Walmsley. Fanny Walmsley lost her husband Thomas Binns Walmsley in 1899, and even more tragically lost Tom's sister Ida Mary, who was just 12 in 1901. And then, of course, as I have just said, in 1918 she lost Tom. How this poor lady must have had the strength to carry on, I do not know. But this isn't the end of the story of Tom, and I'll come back to him later. The next soldier I would like to talk about is Lawrence Ethelbert Wall. Lawrence was born in Haworth in 1899 and was baptised at Haworth Parish Church on the 28th of May 1899. He was the youngest son of Walter and Lucy Wall of 29 Bridgehouse Lane, Haworth. And Lawrence enlisted in August 1917 at the age of 18. And he was first with the West Riding Regiment and then went on to the 1st Battalion of the Northumberland Fusiliers. They fought many battles on the Western Front, and the Fusiliers' job was mainly to maintain and repair defences. This often involved working at night, where they were fired upon with heavy shelling, and also suffered gas attacks. Lawrence didn't arrive in France until Easter Saturday, just before his 19th birthday. And as early as the May, Lawrence received injuries with gunshot wounds to his ankle and was moved to the field hospital at Etaples. There was 22,000 injured men at the convalescence depot in Etaples. And although the men were injured, it did not stop the Germans attacking using incendiary bombs. And at one of these attacks, Lawrence sadly was killed. He's listed on Haworth's War Memorial, and prior to going into the signing up, he worked as a clerk for George Hattersley at his Northbrook Works. And as a boy, he was a treble soloist in the Haworth Parish Choir. We visited Lawrence's grave last September at Etaples Military Cemetery. It was very thought-provoking to stand there in Edward Lutyens' incredible memorial, where 11,500 graves are from both wars. It was even more moving for me to stand at Lawrence's grave, as he was my great-granddad's cousin. Third serviceman I would like to talk about is Rennie Hollins of Stanbury. He was born in 1896 and was the son of Richard and Anne Hollins. In 1901, the Hollins were living at number 9 Lumfoot, but by 1911 they were living at 74 Main Street, Stanbury. Rennie also lived at 75 Main Street, Stanbury before joining the army. He attested into the army in 1915 and will have been involved firstly at Albert and then on the Somme before moving north to Arras to see even more action as part of the 4th Battalion of the Duke of Wellington's. After this battle they got some much needed rest and relaxation before being transported to Belgium, where Rennie will have been involved in the 1st and 2nd spring offences by the Germans, which saw the Germans retreat. There was lots of localised fighting, and in one of these attacks Rennie was killed in action on the 1st of August 1918 and is buried at Gonerham Cemetery. He is also remembered on the War Memorial at Stanbury Cemetery. Before I go, I would like to make the following special announcement. It gives me great pleasure to inform you that through the hard work in researching these servicemen, and more importantly the efforts of the wonderful man Ian Wharton from the Men of Worth project, who put forward these 2 Crossroads servicemen for consideration to have it accepted that they died due to injuries suffered during the war. They have both been recognised as dying in service of their country. The first soldier is Arthur Hutchison, who died from tuberculosis aged 23 and lived at 6 Haworth Road Crossroads. The second serviceman was none other than Tom Raymond Walmsley, who I discussed earlier. I'm over the moon that both these men have finally been recognised. I'm sure if Fanny Walmsley and her family were looking down, they will be doing so with pride. Once we are allowed to have a public gathering, this acknowledgement will be properly marked with a ceremony and for both these fantastic Crossroads men who are both laid to rest in Haworth Cemetery. Thank you to everyone who has made the sacrifice during all conflicts up to and including the present day. They gave up their today so we could have our tomorrows, lest we forget.